Hello everyone, welcome back to another video talking about intelligence. And in this section, we're going to discuss the influence of heredity and the environment on intelligence. So let's get into it. The first thing that we're going to talk about when we are talking about the influences of heredity in the environment are obviously nature versus nurture. So we have genetics and we have the environment that play a role in people's intelligence. The first thing that we're going to talk about is the genetics or the nature side of the nature versus nurture debate in regards to intelligence. More than 1,000 genes influence intelligence. All of those in genes influence intelligence, but in regards to nurture and in regards to the environment, if children are able to manipulate the environment early in age, then that also helps with the environment, with children's intelligence. And so it's important for parents, for teachers, for caregivers to allow for children to manipulate their environment, have certain toys where they're able to manipulate the environment safely, and that also influences children's intelligence. There is also there's also variation in how different cultures describe intelligence. And so you have to think about culture in regards to intelligence as well. So we have the Western thinking of describing intelligence, and we have an Eastern view of describing intelligence. In regards to the Western view, Western is more reasoning and more thinking skills. So Western intelligence is highly based on intelligence testing, and you can see that even in our school system today, in the American school system, how much testing there is. Intelligence really is based on reasoning and thinking skills, and most of those reasoning and thinking skills can be measured indirectly through intelligence testing. But when we're thinking about Eastern cultures, they describe intelligence as children and adults being members of society and being able to engage in social roles. So that goes back to a communal society where people are very much trying to worry not so much about just themselves, but about their family, about the community. And so the more that they're able to really help this society, the more they are able and described as more intelligent. So again, intelligence varies based on your culture. It varies based on who you're asking. Intelligence tests vary. Intelligence tests, the early intelligence tests were very much culturally biased. There are still some intelligence tests that are culturally biased, and they are culturally biased against urban students. They are mainly based for children that are white and that are middle or higher socioeconomic status, and children that are in urban neighborhoods. The intelligence tests are not good for cultures that do not speak English, or that speak English but it's not standard English. So we think about AAVE, the African American vernacular, AAVE, the African American vernacular English. So people that don't speak English at all, or speak very little English, or speak non-standard English, those intelligence tests are not good for those types of people that fall into those categories. The intelligence tests mainly are made for people that live in urban areas, instead of rural areas, people that are middle socioeconomic status or higher, and that are white. But there are some things that can be done to combat cultural bias. And something that is done to combat cultural bias is to have culturally fair tests. And those kinds of tests aim to avoid cultural bias. So they want to make sure that when we have these cultural fair tests, two ways that these intelligence tests aim to avoid cultural bias is one, they ask questions that are familiar to people from all socioeconomic status and ethnic and racial backgrounds, which can be very difficult to do, but it is a good thing to do because we want people to be able to all have a fair chance to be able to score as highly as they can on IQ tests. Nonverbal questions also do quite well at avoiding cultural bias because it's allowing the children and the adults who take these intelligence tests to manipulate the products or the things that they have in order to come up with a question, in order to come up with an answer to a question. So cultural fair tests work to combat cultural bias by having questions that can be familiar to everyone and having nonverbal questions. Okay, I'm going to see you all on the next slideshow, and we're going to talk about the extremes of intelligence. See you on the next video.